What's up, airplane collectors? Welcome to a model airplane review. It's your host Ray. In today's video, I'll be reviewing the Gemini Jet's 1:400 scale Air Canada Boeing 777-200LR. This model was released in February of 2022 alongside a flaps down version, and in today's video, I'll be reviewing the standard version. This video is being made at the request of one of my viewers or subscribers. If you see a model in my collection that you would like me to review that I haven't reviewed yet, you can comment that down below and I'll get that review published as soon as I can. In today's video, I'll talk about the box, then the model itself, and at the end of the video, I'll give my personal opinion about what I think of the model and whether or not I recommend it to other collectors. With that being said, let's get this started, and it's good to be back after being sick for a few weeks. Glad to be back narrating videos. Let's go. Starting off with the box is your standard issue Gemini Jet's 1:400 scale wide body box at 19.5 centimeters lengthwise and height-wise, and 5 centimeters wide. I'll show you around the box now. So here's the front. Bottom, right side, top, left side, and here's the back side. Take a moment to read this if you'd like to. This box is designed in such a way that the box allows for a flap on the front of the box to open up and reveal the model inside, and under this flap is a bit of information about the 777 family and this specific aircraft. Take a moment to read this if you'd like to. And here's the model itself. I'll give you a quick 360 before I begin the review. The model is 16 centimeters lengthwise, the wingspan is 16.5 centimeters, and the tail from the ground is about 5 centimeters, so the model is 5 centimeters tall. Accurate to 1:400 scale and relatively large for a model. It's also pretty heavy because this model is made primarily out of die-cast metal. This model was made using the new updated JC wings mold, hence why it also has a flaps down version. Starting up at the front of the aircraft, this is probably where the most of my complaints and issues with this model comes from, and that would be the nose shape. Now, overall, the nose profile isn't really the best. It's surprising that this mold, which has historically had a good nose shape, turned out like this. I believe it's both a combination of the nose shape being slightly wrong and the cockpit window printing, but overall, the nose shape doesn't look too good at all, in my opinion. I'm not really 100% sure, but it just doesn't really look right. That's the only way I can really describe it. So apologies for not being able to use more technical terms to describe what I mean, but the nose shape doesn't really look the best. Could be better, that's what I'm saying, but at least it also could be worse. So nose shape isn't that great. As for printed detail, there's a lot of printed detail. Here you can see the front section of the aircraft, and I'll move down the fuselage. Lots of detail to go around. The rest of the fuselage looks fine in terms of both printed detail and shape, so no complaints. Here's the vertical stabilizer. Everything here looks good. Plenty of molded detail for the rudder on the vertical stabilizer, and the paint application looks pretty good. Now I'll show the other side of the aircraft, so take a moment to look at this. It's pretty much the same as the left side, and I can say the same things as I did with the left side. Printed detail looks pretty good, and everything except for the nose looks pretty solid. Moving on to the wings on this model look pretty good. Their shape is nice. There's a decent amount of detail of all types, printed, painted, and molded. You can see painted detail on the forward slats right here, which looks pretty good. Printed lines here, no issues with those, and plenty of molded detail for the control surfaces, all of which looks good, and it appears as though there's no issues with paint application there. So very nice. Here's a look at the raked wingtips for those of you who are picky about wingtips like me. These look pretty solid. And the bottom of the wing doesn't have any printed detail, but molded and painted details are still present down here, and they all look pretty good. So the wings overall are pretty solid. Moving to the rear section of the aircraft, here we can see the horizontal stabilizers and the APU. Horizontal stabilizers look pretty good. There is printed, molded, and painted detail on these, all of which looks good, no complaints. I do believe I see some pieces of like garbage or something, I'm not sure. There we go. Thought I saw paint chips, but no, those aren't paint chips. Everything looks good here. Bottom side doesn't have any printed detail, but you can see the forward section of the horizontal stabilizers is painted quite nicely, which is a nice touch. And the only thing really to look at down here is these APU access doors, all of which looks good. And speaking of the APU on this model looks pretty solid. There appears to be a little bit of a white stain on top of the exhaust hole, but it's nothing really too much to complain about. Aside from that, APU looks pretty solid. It looks nice from this side, and on this side there's not really that much to see, but it still looks nice from this side as well. Moving on to the engines. The engines on this set of models they were pretty questionable, I'll just say it that way. Not in their shape or anything, but in the way that the engines were fitted onto the rest of the airplane. My example here arrived with the engine bent downwards like this. At first it doesn't look like anything's out of the ordinary here, but when you look at it from the side, you can definitely see that the cowling of the engine is bent downwards, and that's not right. And this happened on quite a few models. However, a decent number of models also made it out with normal engines, so quality control on the engines wasn't very good. And I can't complain too much because I was able to fix it by bending it, so yeah, that issue fixed itself. Aside from that, engine details look pretty good. You can see the fan blades there. They don't spin, they don't have any details on them or anything, but they look pretty good. And the backside, the exhaust nozzle looks good, engine pylon looks pretty good, and the bottom of the engines has plenty of printed detail, and it even has the little Air Canada logo right there facing the inside of the fuselage, which is very nice. So overall, the engines look pretty solid, but they did have questionable quality control in terms of mounting them onto the airplane, so yeah, there's that issue going on there. Moving on to aerial features, this model features antennas and communication domes. There are 3 antennas on the top of the aircraft, 2 large ones, one here, and a small one at the rear section of the airplane. And there's also a sat dome right here. All of these look pretty good. They're fit into the model very nicely, and I've seen no reports of these arriving broken or damaged, so quality control on the antennas was pretty good. On the bottom of the aircraft, well, there are no antennas, which ironically on the box art, the model is displayed with antennas at the bottom rear section of the airplane. However, these are not present on the model. Speaking of the bottom of the aircraft, we're going to move on to the landing gear. The landing gear on this model is pretty solid. The main landing gears are nicely detailed. They do pivot within quite a wide range of motion, which is a very nice touch. The wheels roll smoothly, which is rather uncommon for Gemini jets, so the quality control on the landing gear on my example was pretty good. And the nose gear, of course, it doesn't roll, and I believe this one is supposed to roll, so the wheel here didn't exactly get that much quality control. But aside from that, the gears are nicely detailed. And they seem pretty sturdy, so just no complaints on the gear except for the nose wheel not rolling on this one, and even then that was not really that big of a deal. Here's a view of the front of the aircraft. Here we can see wing flex, engine clearance, cockpit window printing, and stabilizer alignment. It appears as though the vertical stabilizer might be a little bit tilted to the right side of the aircraft, but aside from that, I don't really notice anything too much out of the ordinary. The wing flex of the main wings and the horizontal stabilizers might be a tad too high. I'm not 100% sure, but they're still within acceptable margins, so I won't complain about that. Engine clearance looks good, gear balance looks good, and despite the fact that I kind of thought I saw something weird with the cockpit windows earlier, they are symmetrical, which is rather rare for Gemini these days, so that's at least something that this model has going for it, in terms of the cockpit window and the nose section looking kind of funny. And that's what I have for the review. Now time for my personal opinion and recommendation. The model is solid. The thing that I have the issue with the most is the quality control, because I saw multiple examples of this model both in person and online, and I saw things like the engines being messed up, the landing gear sometimes didn't roll, like here in my example, the nose wheel doesn't roll, which the gear rolling isn't that big of a deal, but the engine placement is definitely a surprise considering that it comes from the JC Wings mold. So yeah, quality control was spotty on this batch, I'll just say it that way. And in terms of the nose shape, it just seems kind of off. I can't exactly place it. It might just be me. I might be completely wrong. I'm no expert on the anatomy of the 777 nose. But yeah. That being said, I do recommend this model to other collectors. I just say tread with caution, as per usual with Gemini models, because if you're ordering online, you don't get to inspect the model, and you don't know what kind of quality control issues you're going to encounter. So it's still a great model nonetheless, but yeah, quality control can be a bit spotty. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. As I said earlier, it's great to be back narrating videos. I got really, really sick, and I definitely missed narrating my half-done airplane videos for you guys. So that being said, stay tuned for more airplane and siren content if I stop procrastinating, and I'll catch you guys later. Take care of yourselves, and see you in the next one.